Welcome back, sports fans, to another thrilling episode of Sports Central. I'm glad to see that you all survived last night's tense election. Hopefully it worked out the way that you chose to. But anyways, we'll get right to the sports action. As I said, this is Sports Central, sponsored by C.A. Durr and Company, makers of the delectable Durr's soda. So go out and buy some delicious Durr's. But in the sports news, the Castle football team are sectional champs. The Castle Knights wanted to achieve this goal from the very beginning of the year. Finally got it done on Friday. The Knights rolled over Jeffersonville 50-29. It was a little bit closer than that in the first half. Jeff led 15-14 at one point. Castle scored late right before the half to go up 22-15 at the break. And then at the start of the second half, it was just all Castle. They scored 4 straight touchdowns, led 50-15 early in the fourth quarter with about 9 minutes left. Some subs came in. Jeff scored 2 late touchdowns to make it 50-29, but really the true score was closer to 50-15. It was just a dominating second half performance by the Knights. Mitch Gillis threw 3 touchdown passes in the second half, 2 to John Mark Anderson, 1 to Joe Redburn. He had a rushing touchdown in the first half as well for 4 total touchdowns. Although Gillis did a lot of damage through the air in terms of touchdowns, most of the offense for the Knights came on the ground. Coach Doug Hurt mentioned the strong play of his 2 running backs, junior Andrew Finch and sophomore Christian Peach. The 2 combined for 137 yards. Finch had 2 touchdowns, Peach had 1. A lot of tough yards to gain, and those 2 guys did a really nice job setting up Gillis in the passing attack. And then on the other side of the ball, for just about the 12th straight week, the Castle defense just dominated. They were flying around. They forced a couple turnovers. Jeff, I think, had 2 or 3 first downs against the first team in the second half. So it was just a brutally dominant performance by the Castle defense. And they're going to need that defense and their offense clicking on all cylinders coming up on this Friday. Big-time regional matchup. It's without a doubt the toughest game of the year coming up for Castle. The Knights will be at Center Grove. The Trojans are ranked 6th in the state. They're 11-1. The Knights 3rd in the state, ranked 12-0. That seems to favor the Knights, but if you look at some different polls and different rankings and different stats, everything pretty much slides towards Center Grove. In the coaches poll, which is obviously football coaches voting for teams they feel are the best teams, Center Grove is 5, Castle's 8. And then the Sagarin ratings, which are this complicated math formula that no one really understands, but it's usually pretty accurate. Center Grove is the 3rd best team in Indiana, Castle's the 10th. So those numbers favor Center Grove. The Trojans also play in the toughest football conference in Indiana, with the likes of Ben Davis, Warren Central, Carmel. It's always the toughest conference to play in. Center Grove's only loss is to Carmel, who was ranked number 1 at the time. Center Grove defeated Ben Davis, who when they played was also number 1 at the time. So they've played the best teams in Indiana, and to only lose 1 game is pretty impressive. And both teams, Castle and Center Grove, are just in a groove right now. Center Grove rolled through their sectional 41-12 over Martinsville, 62-6 over Franklin, 42-7 in the final over Columbus North. And for the Knights, obviously, 56-12 Floyd Central, 49-14 Bedford North Lawrence, and 50-29 Jeffersonville. So it should be a big-time matchup on Friday up in Greenwood at Center Grove. I expect Castle fans to travel well. Apparently Center Grove's got a pretty good home field advantage, so I'm looking forward to a very, very exciting matchup. And hopefully the Knights can keep rolling and keep this very impressive season going. As I've mentioned the last couple weeks, the Knights football team is the only fall sport still hanging on, keeping me busy at least a little bit during this lull in between fall and winter sports. But that lull is ending fairly soon. In girls basketball, Castle and Boonville had scrimmages on Monday, And all three Warwick County teams have games coming up. Castle's at home on Saturday against South Central Elizabeth at 1:30. The Lady Braves hit the road to face Wrights at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday. And Boonville Lady Pioneers open up their season on Tuesday at Central at 7:30. In boys basketball action, the Boonville High School team has an intra-squad scrimmage this Saturday at 6. It's likely to feature the freshman, JV, and varsity teams. It's open to the public. It's just a good chance to go out and check out what the Pioneers have to offer coming up this year. And in girls swimming action, all three teams, Castle, Tecumseh, and Boonville, are all swimming at the Tell City Relays on Saturday, and that's likely going to take most of the morning and afternoon. So that wraps up this episode of Sports Central. As always, I thank you guys for tuning in.
Okay, so
we're not doing too much on Friday.
Okay, so let's start with this. What's your name?
Q-Tip.
Where were you going? Who were you going with?
Left my wallet in El Segundo. Left my wallet in El Segundo. Left my wallet.